because at that time, in the US, in UK, Oxford, Cambridge, and top universities in the US, that's where they all went. So I had the benefit of world-class education in Nigeria. And of course, from there, I went on to United States. And that experience was a different experience because, when I arrived in the United States, I didn't really have money because the federal government scholarship that I had wasn't paid. And so I had put together 250 naira at the time, which was a lot of money at that time. Was the dollar was 1-to-1 literally to the dollar. Dollar was 1-1 to the naira. And then I went to the federal government of Nigeria's consulate office in New York. And that was an experience because when I got over there, the guy who was there said, "Well, I hear you just came from to United States from Lagos." I said, "Yes, we just arrived in this morning." He said, "For what?" I said, "Here are my papers saying I'm federal government scholar." He said, "No, we're going to send you back to Nigeria because we haven't even paid the rent for this building for 6 months.
Wow.
So forget about whether you can get any money from there, So, here was I in the United States with only $250 with me and myself and one other guy who finished from University of Nsukka. He was a first-class honors. His name was actually Emeka Ojukwu. I hope one day I would get to see him. And he was going to Texas, and we were there in the embassy. And as we sat in the embassy, one guy walked in. He said, "Look, you can't get money out of here except God breaks a bank in New York." I said, "No, God will not break a bank in New York, but I'll get my money." And so anyway, we went and stayed in one, shanty hotel somewhere that were paying $20. The hotel, room had no, the door wouldn't lock, so we took a double bunk. We used it to shock the door, and that was how we in the morning I told the guy, I said, "Emeka, look, do you pray?" He said, "No, he doesn't pray." I said, "It doesn't matter." I said, "I pray. And the Bible tells me that whatever two of you shall agree on earth shall be agreed for you, my Father that's in heaven." I said, "If I pray, can you say amen?" He said, "I can do." I said, "So go ahead and do. I pray, you say amen." And so we prayed, and he said amen. We got to the Nigerian embassy. Same guy walked in. He said, "You guys are still here?" I said, "We're here." He said, No. God has to break a bank here because you cannot get your money here." Well, anyway, cut a long story short, the consul general asked, "Bring in one of these guys." So they came in and called me, and I walked right through this long office. I saw the guy, and he just said, "Pay this guy." So that was how I was paid.
Wow.
Yeah. And then I went in and I sat down. 2 minutes after, they called in Emeka, and that was how he was paid. And after that, they called the New York Police Department to empty the entire embassy. Wow. So all I wanted to say by that was from the moment I stepped into the United States, I saw the mercy and the grace and favors of God from the very first day. And that was actually how I actually got, I spent $750 because it gave me $500. And I spent $750 for 6 months. Can you imagine? My rent was $100 a month. So that's $600. I had $150.
And you were married?
No, I wasn't married.
You wasn't married?
Oh yeah, nobody would marry me at that time with that kind of money I had. So, but I had to spend $150, believe it or not, for 6 months. I had to walk to school. So I walked in snow. I didn't have gloves. I didn't have anything, and I had only tennis shoes I brought in from Nigeria. And it was very, very hard. I walked more than 10 kilometers to school and back. And one day, I stood on the bus lane, and I had only 25 cents left. Not in America, but in the world. And I entered the bus, and the bus driver said, "Yes, I put in money in the till." So I did. I put 25 cents. He said, "That would be 50 cents, please."
Wow.
I had no 25 cents, so I said, "That's all the money I had." So he put his hand in his pocket, and he took 25 cents out, and he put it in, got me to school. And when I got me to school, I went to see one of my professors who was there, whose name was John Connors, Professor John Connors. And he said, "Akin, I wanted to see you because we had an exam just before, about 3 days before. And your script came back and you scored 54%. Now, 54% was a failing grade. And he said, "What in the world is wrong with you? Because you are the best student by far in this whole class. Something went wrong." I said, "Professor, I haven't eaten for the last 3 days." Wow. So last thing on my mind was the exam. I was just drinking water for 3 days. And So he took out his checkbook, wrote me a check for $100. And that was how I got additional money to, like a foil, you know, to keep me going. But cut a long story short, as I was getting out of his office, he said, oh, go to room 575. I said, what is that? I said, just go over there. I went over there. I met a man whose name was Professor Philip Abbott, mathematician. And he said, well, he always backed the door. And he backed the door and he said, who's there? I said, ADESINA. He said, look, are you a Nigerian student? I said, yes. He said, I hear you're very smart. I said, no, I don't know anything about that. He said, I hear you don't have money. That is absolutely correct. I have absolutely no money. And he said, you have an assistantship.
Wow.
I said, what does that mean? He said, it means that you have a full scholarship for the rest of your master's training, and you will get $575 a month. You can imagine what's that. So that was how I started.
So it was a miracle everywhere.
It was a miracle, and when I finished that, I also got a PhD scholarship. I got my training done and all of that. And at the end of my training, my final exam in the same course, I got a 94%.
Wow. And
I went back to the same professor, and he never gave me my script ever since that time. So he took it out of the drawer, he ripped it off. I gave him $100 back to repay him for all the money he gave me. And he shook my hand and said, congratulations, doctor. So it's an abridged version of the grace of God that saw me through a very difficult situation. And when I finished, I had the outstanding PhD thesis in the university. So it's been God's grace all the way.
I can imagine. I can imagine from leaving hand to mouth.